Welcome back to the Health Filter. This is where we take popular health conversations, trends, assumptions, and run them through a systems thinking lens so that ultimately you can make more informed and empowered decisions about your health. And today's topic is hormones, or more specifically, the question that many women in midlife might be asking, and that is it really my hormones? Because hormones have become the explanation for almost everything, whether that's fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, mood changes, low motivation, poor recovery, poor sleep. And to be fair, to be clear, hormones absolutely do matter. But what if they're only one piece of the puzzle, one piece of that bigger story? What if the better question isn't, are my hormones causing this? But rather, are my hormones driving the symptoms, or are they responding to what's happening elsewhere in the system? And this is where systems thinking becomes pretty important. One of the biggest misconceptions in health conversations is that hormones operate independently, and they absolutely do not. Instead of thinking about hormones as these isolated chemicals floating around causing symptoms, it can be helpful to think of them as messengers. Hormones are one of the ways the body communicates information between systems. Your endocrine system is constantly gathering information about your internal and external environment and then adjusting its output accordingly. If energy is scarce, there's a response. If stress is high, there's a response. If inflammation stays high, if sleep is disrupted, there's a response. And hormones aren't separate from those inputs. They're part of how the body adapts to them. That's why two women with very similar hormone levels can have completely different experiences, because hormones don't operate in this vacuum. They operate within the context of the entire system. And one of the biggest influences on that system is stress. And I'm not talking about emotional stress. I'm talking about that physiological load. One of the most misunderstood hormones in this conversation is cortisol. Cortisol often gets labeled as this like bad stress hormone, but that's not really accurate. You for sure need cortisol. Cortisol helps regulate blood sugar, energy production, inflammation, immune function, even your ability to wake up in the morning. The issue isn't cortisol itself. The issue is when the body perceives ongoing demand without adequate recovery. So poor sleep, psychological stress, undereating, excessive exercise, chronic inflammation. Your body doesn't distinguish between these stressors. It simply interprets them as load. And when that load accumulates over time, the nervous system and endocrine system begin adapting around survival rather than thriving. And this is one reason symptoms often become more noticeable during midlife. We have these hormonal shifts that are occurring at the same time as many women are experiencing peak career demands, caregiving responsibilities, aging parents, teenagers, changing relationships, decades of accumulated stress physiology. It's not just hormones, it's hormones interacting with an already loaded system. Another piece that often gets overlooked is energy availability. Now, energy availability refers to how much fuel is left over for normal physiological function after the demands of daily life and exercise are accounted for. And many women spend years unintentionally teaching their bodies that energy is unpredictable, whether that's through skipping breakfast, eating very little during the day, trying to save calories for an occasion or the evening, increasing exercise when results are stalling out, constantly cycling between restriction and compensation. The body interprets all of those behaviors as information. When energy availability stays too low for too long, the body begins conserving resources, whether that's potentially a decrease in metabolic output, recovery might slow down, building or maintaining muscle becomes super hard, appetite regulation can become less predictable. Again, the body isn't trying to work against you. It's literally just trying to keep you alive. And while this doesn't mean everyone needs to eat more, it does mean that many women are asking their bodies to perform at a level their physiology isn't currently supported to sustain. Now, at this point, some of you might be thinking, okay, but what if my hormones really are part of the problem? And that's a super valid question, because sometimes for sure they are. This is where we get into the conversation around hormone replacement therapy, and whether that's a step for you. If hormonal changes are significantly affecting your quality of life, hormone therapy may be an incredibly valuable tool. For some women, it creates enough stability that they can finally sleep better, recover better, and think more clearly so that they have capacity to address these other pieces of their health. In that case, the hormones aren't the last thing to address. They're just that first domino. But here's where nuance matters. One of the reasons hormone therapy can feel life-changing for some women is because estrogen influences far more than just reproduction. Estrogen affects your brain, your cardiovascular system, your connective tissue, your temperature regulation, your mood, your sleep, and even how we perceive and respond to stress itself. So when estrogen begins to decline, the ripple effects can be felt across multiple systems. Restoring those levels might just create enough stability that the body can begin responding differently. But hormone therapy isn't replacing your need for sleep. It isn't replacing adequate nutrition. It isn't replacing your need for recovery. It's one tool that works within this larger physiological environment. And this is where I think the conversation often gets framed maybe a little bit incorrectly. We ask, is it my hormones or is it my lifestyle? And the reality is it's often both. Hormones influence the system. The system influences your hormones. It's this continuous feedback loop, which means the goal isn't finding that single root cause. The goal is identifying the biggest opportunities to support the system as a whole. And for one person, that might mean exploring hormone therapy. And for another, it might mean just consistently eating breakfast, increasing protein intake. For someone else, it might mean getting better habits around sleep, reducing your training intensity for a season. And often it's several small changes working together. And this is also why support matters. When we're living inside our own symptoms, frustrations, it's really difficult to see the whole picture objectively. Sometimes we do need that healthcare provider, practitioner, coach, supportive community to help us identify patterns that we just might not be able to see ourselves. Not because someone else has all the answers, but because that outside perspective can help us to stop chasing symptoms and start understanding the big picture. It's something I see often inside the Aligned Wellness Collective. Women might come in and they might be looking for, okay, this workout routine, a nutrition plan, that missing piece. And often what creates the biggest shift isn't another single strategy, it's understanding how all the pieces fit together and having support while they make those sustainable changes. So is it really your hormones? For sure. Sometimes it is. But sometimes hormones are the messenger, and often they're both influencing and responding to the larger system at the same time. So the question isn't whether hormones matter. The question is whether you're looking at them in isolation or as part of this bigger picture. Because when you understand the system, you will make better decisions about where to intervene and why. And that's the filter that I want you to look at this through. Not it's all my hormones, not it's all lifestyle, but a deeper understanding of how the body adapts and responds and communicates through systems that keep us alive every day. Because when you stop chasing that single root cause and start supporting the whole system, that's often when meaningful change begins. And if this is the kind of information that resonates with you, and you'd like more practical insights on supporting your health, be sure to hit subscribe, share it with someone else who you think it might benefit from this kind of conversation, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for being here.